better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and welcome to this space where all automotive comes together to learn, to share, to execute. Thanks for choosing to be here this third day of December. And today we're breaking news about the 700 credit hack. What does it mean to automotive? Well, we're in it. But first, let's dive into today's industry headlines. First up today, with average new car price transactions hovering around $50,000, Americans are changing how they buy vehicles, downsizing, shifting to used, stretching loan terms, or holding out for deals as affordability tightens. And dealers are responding by stacking more discounts on the hood, even as lower income buyers fall behind on loans at record rates and shoppers spend less per purchase than they did a year ago. Quote, people are asking, how do I afford this? People are asking, how do I afford this? Shocking. There are people who are in debt and living paycheck to paycheck, Texas dealer Robert Peltier told the Wall Street Journal. Meanwhile, some retailers are holding their ground by leaning into buyers who can still spend, especially in full-size pickups, which posted 3.7% growth year over year in Q3, and by relying more on fixed ops, now up to 13.2% of dealership income. But the bigger picture is clear. New vehicle volume is hitting a pressure point. More shoppers are recalculating budgets, lenders are tightening around the edges, and dealers are increasingly forced to find ways to bridge that affordability gap. Next up today, CDK's global ease of purchase scorecard cratered in November, dropping from 85% to 66% month over month. That's the lowest reading since CDK started tracking customer sentiment more than 3 years ago. But the biggest shift wasn't inventory access, although that slipped too. Fewer shoppers found the exact car they wanted. Pricing talks were significantly tougher as well. However, the real breakdown was trade-ins. The ease of negotiating trade value hit a record low 45%. That's a massive drop from 66% in October. Still, almost all buyers, 98% to be sure, prefer buying from a dealership. 98% from a dealership, brick and mortar. And the dealers who eliminate wasted time while building real pricing trust can stop these pain points from snowballing. Next up today, according to a new Car Guru survey of 3,000 recent car buyers and sellers, digital tools, particularly AI, are taking over the early stages of the purchasing journey. More specifically, 80% of shoppers are now open to using AI to help them buy a vehicle. And the top uses for AI in car shopping include comparing vehicles, that's at 44%, finding listings, that's 40%, and summarizing car reviews at 39%. But even with that shift, dealerships once again remain the preferred place to close that deal, with 61% of shoppers saying they'll visit 2 or more stores in 2025. What's the bottom line here? Well, AI adds another layer to the shopping experience. But at the end of the day, consumers are just walking in more informed, more prepared, and they're expecting that smoother experience. And last up today, as teased at the very top of the show, a data breach at 700 Credit, one of the auto industry's largest credit reporting and identity verification providers, is leaving millions of customers exposed. On or around October 25th, the company was, quote, alerted to suspicious activity coming from the company's proprietary web-based application, according to internal company documents shared with CDG News. Turns out threat actors had copied vital customer data, including social security numbers, and in the process compromised more than 5 million customer records. What's next? 700 Credit is sending out notifications and offering 12 to 24 months of free credit monitoring, but the company is also advising dealers to consult legal counsel about their own reporting obligations. Fascinating conversation, particularly in lieu of last year's CDK outage. So for context on this, let's jump straight to the company and the team that broke this news in part. CEO of ComplyAuto, Brad Miller, welcome to the show. And Yuli, let's talk the CDK credit outage. Brad, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's even you got them mixed up, right? I mean, so we have
Yeah,
CDK, PTSD here. I know, but
it is
it's got
PTSD.
some echoes of what happened last year, both in terms of scale and scope.
Yeah.
But there are important differences. We put out some guidance to our customers and to the industry at large, sort of letting folks know that this had happened. And frankly, to date, we're pretty pleased with 700 credits response. I mean, look, this can happen to any company. Let's just be
Yeah.
realistic. It's
Yeah.
all about the communication. It's about the response. It's about the taking the steps that you need to do to protect your dealer customers. And they seem to be doing that so far.
So, Brad, let's back up a little bit. First of all, tell us who you are and what your role is at ComplyAuto so we get some context. You're an authority
Sure.
figure, and you're someone who has quite a bit of knowledge on privacy and data laws in the United States. You've helped craft a lot of it.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of ComplyAuto. ComplyAuto is a dealer specific compliance company. So we work with over 10,000 dealers in the country on a variety of compliance issues, from privacy and data security to F&I, advertising compliance, EHS and safety, and more, HR, workforce, and other things. So we work with dealers all over the country. I came to ComplyAuto about a year and a half ago. I had spent 16 years at NADA. So most recently as chief regulatory counsel there. I was a lawyer at NADA for years. So I worked on privacy issues for dealers writ large. I worked with with the OEMs on data sharing agreements. I worked with the FTC specifically on the safeguards rule and on other things like the cars rule that was turned over last year. So yeah, a lot of background with this space. State data breach laws, state privacy laws are something I've been working on for 20 plus years. So I'm
So,
glad to be doing it now at ComplyAuto.
so whenever you hear of a breach, like
Yeah.
we've been notified about with regard to the 700 credit breach, you start to think of, to your point, CDK or Equifax or any one of these other breaches. Tell us what your understanding about what happened at 700 credit is. What happened?
Well, it's one of the problems, and I'd be, let's be frank, it's always a bit of a haze at first, right? I'm sure that there have been in the throes, as you noted, it was reported that this occurred as it was discovered in October, and there are indications that it was occurring as long as a few months before that, right? So it takes a while to discover it. Once you've discovered it, your first thing is to stop it, and then you have to
Yeah.
do an investigation to see, if you can determine what happened. And there have been some bits and pieces. There were some reports that perhaps it was related to a breach suffered by one of 700 credit subcontractors, one of their vendors, and then they
Yeah.
got in through an API access on the back end. So again, the early reports tend to be a little tough to confirm, but the key for dealers is to understand, yes, now we've confirmed this has happened. So now the duties as a dealer get triggered, and that's what dealers need to know.
So they're a vendor to many auto groups and
Yep.
auto dealerships. Given
Yeah.
that vendor has had a breach, what is a dealer's responsibility in light of this breach?
Yeah, look, it is one of the sort of lesser understood but frank realities of our world. Dealers are the regulated entities with respect to this information. It's just the way it is. Whether it's under GLB, whether it's under state data breach laws, there's a whole variety of these reasons. Dealers, as whether it's the custodians, the controllers, the owners, the licensors of this data, they ultimately are the ones that have responsibility for notifying customers in the event of a breach. So let me step back. The basic paradigm is, if there's a breach, there's duties under both federal and state law. The federal law is a relatively new obligation, and it's under the FTC safeguards rule. And it basically says that you have to notify the FTC of the fact you've had the breach. Now, interestingly enough, the FTC put this rule out specifically. They stated this, it's not implied, specifically to allow them to enforce the safeguards rule against the people reporting the breach, right? So it's kind of crazy. You have to report on yourself so they can enforce the law against you.
Wow.
But that's the federal FTC obligation. And then every state in the union has their own data breach law. And that's the part that gets complicated, because they're different. They have different thresholds, different definitions. But broadly speaking, they say, look, if there's been a breach, you have to tell the customers affected, hey, we got a problem, so that they can go out and put a freeze on their credit, put a fraud alert on their credit, something to protect themselves so their identity is not stolen. So the dealer has to make sure this happens.
So what if the vendor says, "Hey, we own this. We understand we made the mistake, or we're the victim of the hack. we're going to meet those obligations. We're going to inform the FTC, and we're going to make that report back to the customers. Does that absolve the dealer from responsibility to make notification?
It could. And importantly here, I will tell you, for those who don't know, NADA just announced yesterday that they work with 700 Credit and the FTC directly and the FTC has agreed that 700 Credit will notify the FTC on behalf of all their customers. And the
That's
FTC
awesome.
has said,
Yeah.
we accept that, right?
That's good.
So
Yeah.
your question's a good one, but it depends. In this case, NADA's good efforts, 700 Credit's good efforts. They work together with the FTC. And frankly, the FTC doesn't want 18,000 reports, right? They want one report. Now, remember, the report's going to list all the dealers affected, and it's going to go on a public-facing website. So there's going to be a record out there of the dealers. That's an obligation. That was part of the announcement. But NADA has made it clear that the FTC reporting requirement they've been able to handle. Now, the state is a little bit of a different question.
Okay.
Is that what you mean? Sorry, is that what you mean, that this is going to vary state by state?
Yeah.
Your local dealer should look into the local laws to see if they need to also inform the customer base.
Yes and no. It's not. The nuances really are, what's the threshold for notifying them? For example, some states it's 500 more consumers. Some it's one or more, right? Some states you have to tell the customer, but you also have to notify the state attorney general, right? Some states you have to also tell a credit reporting agency. So they're and like, for example, California has a specific form you have to use to give the notice, right? So my caution to dealers is, 700 Credit has said, I've seen communications from them that where they're promising to make these notifications under the state law. I would urge dealers just to say, hey, look, that's good that you're doing that, and you should, but please confirm for me that you've met the requirements under my specific state law, because they do vary.
Does an email and a communication, does that meet that requirement of saying, hey, we've got it? I mean, that gives you some sort of plausible deniability anyway, if there's an issue, I would suppose later. No?
It's a good question. And some states say yes, some states say no, some say it's okay if they gave you the information electronically, you can send it electronically. So it's a great example of something that varies state to state, and that's why it's a little tough to have blanket statements. But I will say the blanket statement, I understand, is 700 Credit has said they are going to at least to make the effort to comply with these state laws. Now, again, it's complicated to do, but I hope they do it.
So great question online from Yoga Cars. Yoga Cars says, wondering if 700 Credit hack has something to do with the prior CDK hack, since they were or are CDK owned, I believe. I'm not sure that they are owned. I don't know that that's true. I know that CDK and 700 had a relationship at some point. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, no indications of that I'm aware of. I mean, what we can go off is public reports, right? CDK was sort of a threat actor that affected their network directly. There was a ransomware effort that ultimately was paid in that situation. We'd seen some early press reports in this situation that there was also a ransomware effort that was not resolved. And so some of the information got posted in the dark web. And that's kind of where we first heard of this. Then we heard about some, the class actions that always follow here, against 700 Credit, and then of course the confirmation from 700 Credit itself. So, 700 Credit has said they've given an explanation. It's a little, like I said, it's sort of the fog of war when you're sort of figuring this stuff out. But they said they believe it came in this instance through a third-party vendor they had used and through the API they were using. So,
so stepping back a little bit. Thinking about vendor relationships that dealers have with vendors. So dealers collect a ton of data, and that data has to be secured. And in the old world, many dealers might say, hey, you know what? It's up to that vendor. It's on them if there's a breach. It's on them if there's a leak. Well, how should dealers be thinking about third-party risks right now, is it still okay to offload that liability to vendors, or is it something we need to think about differently now?
Yeah, look, there's a regulatory answer and a sort of a lawyer answer. The lawyer in me says, look, get indemnified, right? Regardless, because if it's their fault, you should have some sort of protection that's a contractual issue.
Yeah.
The legal answer is dealers are the ones that are responsible. In fact, it's very, very clear under both state data breach laws and federal laws, like the safeguards rule is the clearest example, where they say, look, you as the regulator, that's why I started by saying dealers are the regulated entity. They're the ones with the legal obligation. You can use the states and the federal government said you can use the service provider to help you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you do, you got to make sure you're vetting them to make sure that you've done your due diligence on the front end, that you've got contract clauses with them that protect you and protect consumers, and that you're following up. So, and that brings an important issue for dealers. We mentioned the notice issue, right, to the FTC and to the consumers and the AGs. There's also a safeguards rule issue here. If you have not already, I would encourage you to make sure that you've got an updated risk assessment from 700 Credit, and that's your safeguards obligations as their service provider of yours. We obviously help our customers do that, but if you're not a ComplyAuto customer for some reason, go make sure you've got an updated risk assessment with an updated data processing agreement. You need special addendums under state privacy law. So there's all sorts of contractual things that you need to be doing that specifically say, hey, this service provider and every other, you're going to make sure that you protect it. And if there's a problem, you cooperate with me. You do the things you need to do.
And so the agreements that you're referencing there, because that was going to be my next question, from a dealer perspective and a GM perspective, coming out of this news, what are 3 things that I should do as a dealer or a GM to make sure that my relationships with my vendors are locked down? So one is that privacy agreement, right? And then the other is the data share agreement.
Yeah, it's just to be clear, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds. This is a different story. The safeguards rule, but basically, you need an agreement that says you're my service provider. You're going to protect the data the same way I do under the safeguards rule, right? Then you also have to go to them and say, I need you to give me some basic information about the way you protect data, so that I can show that I've met my obligations under the safeguard rule to vet you, right?
Yeah.
This is not today's problem, but the other issue under the safeguards rule that's important not to forget is when this is over in the next few months, you also need to make sure that you've gone into your own safeguards program and said, hey, look, we had this issue with one of our vendors. What have we done to make sure that we've followed up, that let's say they had a glaring issue, that they fixed it, or that this is not going to happen again, or that we've been assured that the risks are at a level that we can accept for our own safeguarding of the customer data. So unfortunately, it's
3
not
steps.
just this notice issue.
Yeah.
You got to go do a little work after the fact too.
Yeah. So document it in one shape, form, or another. And you mentioned the ComplyAuto. ComplyAuto is a widely accepted program out in automotive, and there's a part on your website where you can log it, you can log the notice, and then you can indicate what you've done to prevent it. And I would assume that there are other similar programs to ComplyAuto that do very similar things.
Nothing compares to our. No,
No.
Look, in all seriousness, we do have some proprietary tools. I'll tell you, we actually have a wizard in our software where you can go in and detect under your state law, have you met the threshold for notice? It will help you provide the notice. I mean, that's a very difficult thing to do. When I was in private practice many years ago, I worked on these things for private customers. It's a big lift to go in there and understand these 50 state laws, right? We've done that kind of thing for you. But specifically to your point, it's a great question. Go in and check and see, hey, do I have an updated risk assessment from this vendor? We've got flags and things, and you can send requests because you need that, right? To be protected as the dealer, like I said, remember the paradigm. You're the one that's responsible. They understand you can use service providers, and service provider can have the problem. You got to make sure you've done something to prove that you did your due diligence and followed up on this with your service provider as the responsible party.
Yeah. A lot of this work that you're talking about, it's almost a full-time job because you're talking about stepping back again from the 700 issue. You're talking about analyzing every relationship you have in the dealership where you're providing an interchange of data and information, which it's a ton of different companies that we do business with in automotive. It seems like this dedicated compliance or cybersecurity officer, it is truly a full-time job. What would you say to the dealer today in light of what's happened who may say, hey, you know what? I don't think it really is a full-time job. I'm going to give it to my controller or my office manager to do kind of as a part-time function.
Well, I will tell you, when I was at NADA, I spent several years going around the country talking to dealer groups about the safeguards rule when it was coming. And I would tell them about the complicated issues. And I would end by saying, look, get started on the vendor management, because that's going to be the biggest pain part of this process. Because the average dealer, it varies, but we did a study at NADI. It was something like 45 different third parties that you're engaged with. The average dealer is. So to manage that process, to get them to amend contracts, to understand what their risk assessment profile, huge, right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons I'm here is because ComplyAuto does that for dealers, right? That is one of the major functions that we serve for dealers in our software. But you're right, it is a very complicated issue to get with, and again, I will say the other nice thing about the fact that we have the scope and scale that we do from a vendor perspective is, think about a vendor who's getting 18,000 of these requests, right? They
Yeah.
can come to ComplyAuto, do it once, and do it for all 10,000 of our customers, which makes their life a little easier too. And 700 Credit's been a good partner with that.
And that's what I was going to ask. Has 700 Credit done that? Have they gone through that process with ComplyAuto?
They have,
In
and they've
advance?
been. I don't want to either disparage or compare them, but they've been very, they've done what they needed to do. Now, again, don't just take what Brad Miller said. Still go in your system and make sure you've got an updated form in there, because you literally all the dealer has to do is sort of countersign the agreement. Right? We've made it simple for you, but you still
Yeah.
want to take that check, double check it. Whether this is going to be an issue for dealer, I think is potentially a reach, but you want to be protected, right? You don't want to be affected by something that wasn't your fault.
So let's step back for just one moment before we wrap up this conversation, because I think the other thing maybe dealers are thinking about, a credit company, that's kind of a given. You're going to share information with them so they can pull credit bureaus and provide monitoring and do all the things. So a company like 700 getting access to customer data is a no-brainer, and it's something that whether you're with them or someone else, that's going to happen. What's terrifying right now in automotive is AI and all the AI companies that are popping up all over the place. How should a dealer today be thinking about all these new AI technologies with companies that aren't specialized in automotive but are popping up with solutions? And where should you share and where should you not share customer data and information in this world of AI?
Holy cow! Yeah, that's a big question. So yeah, this has been a perennial problem. 20 years ago it was the DMS and what was being sucked out of the DMS, and we moved on to the CRM. And frankly, today I will tell you, websites are the next frontier of where this information is being shared, and I encourage dealers to look into that. But in terms of AI, look, there are some controls that you can have now. Whether you need, you should ask the same question with companies that provide AI services you do with anyone else. Do they really need this information to provide the service? Right? That's the threshold question. And what information do they need? Provide them that and no more, and get them to sign a contract saying that's all they're going to take and all they're going to use it for. Right? That's what a responsible third party of any kind will do, AI or not. There's some additional considerations with AI in the sense that you have to be careful that the data you provide or they have access to is not used to train models, right? And that actually is something that should be controlled and controllable, and a question you should ask, right? In other words, I'm sharing this information to make my services as a dealer I give to my customers better. That doesn't mean you take that and then let this large language model or some other proprietary model you have take my data and train off of it, right? Because then you've lost control of it very quickly, and you frankly have given value away that you don't need to do. So the good news is it's more and more of a top of mind issue, and it should be something that's not new. But if you're a dealer, that's one of the questions I'd ask. I say, look, we don't want our data used to use to train the model, and it shouldn't be. So that's one additional issue. Go ahead.
It's interesting because AI, it can be a little fuzzy to dealers how much data it gets access to or not, right? By its very nature, it's combing through things, trying to figure out things and try to anticipate things. But you're saying you can engage with those vendors and tell what it can and can't access.
Yeah, look, we offer one of our most recent products called Deal Check AI. Is a very powerful tool. We engage with a lot of the companies out there, and we have taken steps to ensure that they don't use any of the data that runs through their systems to train their models, right? That's the key, right? They're very hungry for this information. We can talk a lot more about how it works, but it's controllable. That's the good news.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Brad Miller, CEO of ComplyAuto, it's been incredible having you on. You guys have really broken the story in so many ways and leading the front on how to address it. And really, this is a great opportunity for dealers to just think about how they're protecting data and what their policies and procedures are, and just kind of button up things. Even if this isn't a super significant breach, one way or another, it's a great opportunity to clean things up. As we leave, I want to ask you one question we've asked many guests. ChatGPT, you're a general manager. How much can you just put in there for an easy, quick answer to a problem? Is it okay to upload stuff?
Hey, look, I'll tell you, if you're not using AI in your job, you're not trying. Let's just be reality. But let me, in all seriousness, and my lawyer in me, in the dealer world, there's two places you have to be careful. Are you using it in
Yeah.
employment decisions? Are you using it in any sort of financing decisions? If you
Yeah.
are, you're venturing into a world, and that may happen more than you realize, whether it's who do I offer this rebate to, how am I determining who I offer it to, whatever it might be. There's lots of use cases. The regulators, the plaintiffs bar get very excited about that kind of thing because there can be implications you don't realize from the AI perspective. So yeah, look, use it. Don't fool people into thinking they're talking to a person when it's an AI because they don't like that either. But if it's rebates, financing, or employment, use extra caution. That's my lawyer answer.
Yeah. All right. So as you go, just a couple comments from you. Yoga Cars dealers should only send encoded data to AI when it comes. That from Yoga Cars. Lauren Klein, would you recommend dealers build their own AI rather than use outsource to keep their data safe? That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, build your own AI. I mean, look, it's yes. Remember, AI gets to be a little bit of a fuzzy term, right? We're talking about using the large language model tools that are available, right? Get with someone who understands that. If you're using certainly if you're using a vendor, you need someone that not only understands that, but is actually controlling it, right? I mean, hallucinations are real. It is not foolproof. Just literally just throwing it into the LLM is not going to give you anything that really is very useful. But someone who knows what they're doing with expertise can sort of guide the power of the AI. Think of AI as a really powerful tool. It's got to be guided and used with someone who knows what they're doing in terms of guidelines, right? That's essentially what we're talking about. So if you want to build your own, that's fine. But you got to be careful. It's not a small lift to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to give you something that really is meaningful.
Well, Brad Miller, thanks for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back in the future. Hopefully not for this same topic, but we'd love to have you back again. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Take care, y'all.
Thanks, Brad.
See you.
Yuli?
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. What's your take? Crazy.
Scary, man. It's scary, but it always comes back to the same thing, right? Dealers are responsible. So it's walking that razor's edge. Just an incredible business. And that's why shows like this are so important. You're walking that knife's edge between profitability and, doomsday.
Well, and I don't think you have to walk an edge. I think it's a great opportunity. It serves as a great reminder to just button it all up. Make sure you've got those agreements in place. Make sure you know who you're doing business with, how they're utilizing the data. Make sure you've got restrictions in place so that they're not using it in ways that would expose you beyond what you're comfortable with. And then make sure that you certify them every single year that, hey, they're handling it in the correct way. And so far, it seems like 700 Credit as a company has done a great job. We'd love to have them on the show, by the way, to give response and a little bit of context. And, as much pain as certainly they're going through in the moment, trying to deal with all this, there'll be some great takeaways for automotive, much like CDK did. I think CDK provided a lot of context and background. Paul Salzman, another fantastic guest. Comply is a great organization. And speaking of great organizations, Yuli, let's talk about cars.com, shall we? So today's episode, including this context on the outage, is brought to you by Cars.com, the #1 most recognized marketplace brand, helping your dealership show up and stand out to the most valuable car shopping audience. Props to Cars.com. You can scan the QR code there to learn more information on them, or you can click the link in the show notes if you're watching the podcast after our live broadcast. But thanks, Cars.com, for sponsoring the content, including the commentary just now from ComplyAuto. And props to ComplyAuto, too, for coming on, sharing things as well. So we got a lot of good perspectives. Let's go straight into our next guest, someone I know who's near and dear to my own auto group, general manager at Zeigler Auto Group. He's got multiple rooftops, including BMW, Nissan, and Infiniti in Orland Park. He's a VP and general manager at Zeigler Auto Group, Will O'Hara. Will, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
Welcome.
Thanks for being here. Will, what's your take on data security in this world? I mean, it's interesting. We go from CDK into 700 Credit and some of the other things. It's just a good reminder to button things up. Yeah, Will.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Brad put it perfectly. Like, you need to check everything that you're doing. You got to check every box, because if you don't, there's a lot of stuff you can get exposed right now, and you got to go out there and button it up, because if you don't know, you're walking the knife's edge to some degree. So go in and inspect before you get hit, and make sure you got the right process and procedures in place.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so Will, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about how Biz is. That's our first question we always ask. And then tell a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I been with the Zeigler Auto Group 12 years now, general manager BMW, Infinity, Nissan here in Olin Park, and then a couple more stores up in Lincolnwood, Cadillac, Buick, GMC. And yeah, it's been November was a interesting one. I think the hard part for the finish was Black Friday was snowed out in the Midwest. Anybody that was out in the Midwest that got over a foot of snow here in Chicago made it a little bit of tough sledding out here to have a big close. But it's definitely we're in an environment that is, I would say, you're in this K-shaped economy where it's very brand specific. You got hot brands, you got brands that are on the weaker side, and it really comes down to having the right team in place, having the right processes and procedures, and those who stand out, do the right things, will end up being successful in any marketplace.
So let's ask that question. To your point, many entities, including Cars.com and Cox Automotive, have reported that retail traffic has softened recently in the last week or so. Will, when the retail market tightens unexpectedly, from your perspective, what's the first lever a GM can pull today, right now in December of 2025, to generate front-end momentum without throwing the gross out the window?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I mean, the first is you got to make sure, depending on your brand, you have the right inventory and that you manage it well. If you have the right cars and you have the right inventory management process, the grosses are going to be better. If you're sticking around with old or aged inventory, that's obviously going to hurt you in times of softening demand. So making sure that you're properly managing your inventory and then your processes, and make sure it's dialed in on every single lead that's coming in, and make sure that you're capturing, every customer that comes in the door. Those are things you can do. Providing a good experience and making sure that the customer, like you just said, some of these satisfaction ratings that we have for customers, you got to provide a good experience and make sure the customer is getting taken care of, and the customers will find out and they'll find you, and that's when you sell them a car.
All right. So talk to us about used vehicles and used acquisitions. So that's something and you do pretty well. We had Cox's interim chief economist on the show a couple shows ago, and he actually said, look, Q1 2026 is going to be strong with used cars. It's okay to, and I'm paraphrasing, he'd kill me if I paraphrase this way, it's okay to relax some of the turn discipline in order to stock up used cars. What's your thought on that, and what's the discipline you exercise on used car inventory today?
So here's the thing: you need to have a first and foremost a good inventory management process on used cars. You need to run a tight process and try to turn your lot as fast as you can. Now, used car prices have been stable relatively all year, and the one thing that I see to maybe counter that argument would be, I just looked. If you look at some of the data, new car day supply is running close to 90. So as that happens, manufacturers are going to continue to put special interest rates out there. They're going to add incentive spending, and typically that does feed into the used car market. So you got to be a little bit cautious on what you're buying. Be specific, be tactful, make sure you're filling voids in your inventory, that you need cars. Don't just buy cars to buy cars. But on the other side of that, the best place to go buy cars right now is in your service department. If you're not in your service department looking for inventory that you can capitalize on, there's great cars coming through the door every single day.
What's your process to acquire used cars in service?
So our service process, one thing we do, we use obviously Automotive Mastermind that we've used for quite a while, and we look at that process. And every night we get a list of cars that have high rankings for stuff we're looking for, or they're in a position that they could maybe get out of the car based on maybe their lease mileage, or they're out of warranty, etc. So we try to target those customers and make sure that we give them a quote, an offer, and those are the cars that you want to buy. You want to buy cars at the curb. You do not want to go to the auction to buy cars necessarily, because those are the ones that have been picked over and you have fees and etc. So if you want to be successful in your used car business, go find cars on the street and get everything you can at the curb.
We've had this conversation with many on the show. Do you have some sort of a number in mind where acquiring from service versus at the auction, like, are you able to quantify the impact of that difference? And are you willing to pay a little more for those in service as a result of them being higher quality?
I would say that if you're not paying up for your service cars or the cars you're buying at the curb, you're making a mistake, because typically if they've serviced the car with you and you've done a good job at maintaining that customer, hopefully it's a nice car, a quality car, maybe without an accident, etc. And that's the car that you want to get, you should be willing to pay more for. if you're paying more for a car at an auction versus a car in your own service drive, I think that's a mistake. So if you're going to step up on any vehicle, you should be stepping up for a loyal customer and somebody that's in your service drive.
So, Will, your stores consistently outperform in the marketplace, as do most Zeigler stores, especially in Midwest winter conditions when many dealers see a slowdown. You mentioned Black Friday. You mentioned there was actually a one-day record snowfall in the Chicagoland forever in November, ever, all history,
Crazy.
which is crazy. What operational discipline or GM behavior separates you on a day like that from other stores that others could learn from, Will?
Yeah, I mean, as my team will tell you, I'm probably one of the most aggressive guys in the room and putting deals together. I don't want anybody getting out the door. I want to make sure that we make every single deal that makes sense. And you just got to be aggressive in the marketplace. And if it's snowing, like I'm telling people, hey, it's a snow sale. Come on in. We'll make the best deal. If you can get here safely, like, you know, we're going to make sure that we make the best deal for you. So, you know, and give you a great experience. That's really what it's about. So, you know,
guys,
at times, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if you guys have any 6x6s for those snow days, but
Yeah.
I have a curiosity. You know, we talk about you have to have used car discipline, right? Everyone that's listening to the show understands that. Any top operator wants that. Can you drill into specifically what are you looking for in your used car department? Like what's your inventory mix? What's your turn time? You know, like where are you holding yourself accountable? If I'm listening to this show and I want to increase my used car department, my profitability, where am I heading?
I would say the biggest things that people don't look at probably in used cars is they don't look at market day supply enough on what inventory they're stocking and then how they're pricing that car day one. So if you unpack it, first thing is most important is you need to get the car time to line and online as fast as possible and recon as fast as possible because that clock is ticking, especially if you're in any environment where used car prices could fluctuate or even go down. You want to turn that car faster. So my philosophy is if I'm in a stable market, prices obviously will be more consistent. If I'm in a declining market, I'm more aggressive of a buyer because every day that I can buy a car, the next day, the following day, if prices are declining, I'm getting them cheaper than the guy that has the car that's 90 days old. So when I look at our process, like if you can turn your lot 12 times a year, you're doing a great job. You're going to feed your service department. You're going to keep your aged inventory low. But, you know, I would say, you know, we try to run, I don't like anything over 90 days. You know, some groups are at 60 days. We try to be as aggressive as possible, but you really need to look at how you price the car day one, how you market that car day one, and make sure that it's on point. Because if you're not, and you're priced way out of the market, that car is going to sit for 30, 45 days, and then you're going to drop the price, and you're not going to turn it and miss the trade and everything else. So that cycle slows way down.
Yeah. So, Will, Lauren Klein asks online, are there any cars you stay away from in the used car market? Is there anything you're staying away from right now, Will?
You know, I would say that probably right now is the EV market is fluctuated a lot. You know, I don't know. Listen, there's no specific inventory that I would stay away from unless it's a problem brand or something that I know is going to have issues. Maybe one brand that I've seen just in our stores, maybe from my experience, that I've had issues with used cars in reliability is Maserati. So I try to stay away from those cars on the retail side because they've been kind of a nightmare for me. But you know, outside of that, if you're getting a quality car, you know, my kind of rules are this: if it's cosmetically looking good, if it's relatively good service shape, and it doesn't have an accident, and it wasn't a smoker car, those are cars I want to retail. You know, I don't like to retail smoker cars. You know, if they got multiple accidents or something severe, I typically try to wholesale them or we get out of those cars. Those aren't a retail product for the Zeigler Group anyways. And we try to move on. You know, if it's something that is quality that we know is serviced and looks good and we can make a car, those are the cars that we want to retail.
So what are you doing on day 90? You had mentioned 90 is your cutoff. Yeah.
So typically, you know, the way our pricing strategy is for my stores, we're aggressive enough that we typically don't get we don't get to that point. And if we do, you know, of course, you're going to have one or two or three of those that get to 90. And typically what we do in our group is, you know, I try to refresh those cars at one of our other Zeigler stores and try to look at maybe it's a product that needs to be at one of our other stores because it's, you know, a different brand. You know, should I have a GMC here stocked in at BMW where I could put that car at our GMC store that's probably going to do better and turn faster? or vice versa, the other way around. So we try to move the inventory around, inside of 90 days and try to refresh it at one of our different Zeigler stores and give it a new look. Because as the thing goes, a salesperson at one store, they might say, hey, that car's 90 days, but you put one of those cars at a different store and that car's fresh to them. They don't know that it was aged. So that's just a process that I have inside my stores that we stick to.
Yoga Carr says online, at 90, it becomes the GM's demo. Igor says, my aging policy is also 90 days and it's going to auction. I love the GM demo comment. So it's interesting. You mentioned the increasing supply on new cars right now, which the industry is seeing across the country. And as a result of that increasing supply, to your point, OEMs are definitely turning up the heat on incentive stair steps to finish the year. As a GM, as a VP, how are you coaching your team to balance that chasing stair step versus maintaining strong retail fundamentals that protect gross and morale?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One is you need to have the volume, right? And you need to hit those numbers because it's probably important to the dealer profitability. The second thing is one area we can focus on, which is obviously close to you, Sam, is really hone in on your F&I process and make sure that process is dialed in. And if you can do that, you can still be able to move the volume and hit your goal and hit your number, and still be able to, make good profit and keep the store profitable. So the other thing is too, just to follow up on that, is we're in a like I said, we're in a K-shaped type economy where the high end, you look at luxury, you look at, the higher end brands that are continuing to do pretty well, I would say. And then you look at some of the other brands that have struggled. And I think the big thing is the consumer on the lower end is struggled a little bit. You look at some of the data points, on the negative side, which you would say, subprime auto loan delinquencies are up at 30-year highs. Okay. So that's kind of a red flag to me, right? Mm-hmm. Credit card delinquencies at 14-year highs. You got mortgage foreclosures year over year in October were up 20%. So you kind of got some cracks in the economy, and you got to say, where am I going to focus on? Focus on the good pieces of retail that you can. Make sure you're providing the best service to the customer, and make sure you're putting your customers in the right cars. I've seen it over my career so many times. Customer comes in, they're probably on too much car. Help your customer make the right financial decision for them. Put them in a good payment where they can come back in 2 or 3 or 4 years and get another car from you, where they're not $30,000 upside down or something like that. You want to put the customer in a good financial position.
So another couple great comments online from a guy named Bill O'Hara. This guy is really smart. I wonder who that possibly could be.
No relation.
Not a lot of people may realize you're second generation. Your dad had a Chrysler store, came to the Zeigler Auto Group. He now leads the team at the JLR in Schaumburg, and you're there at BMW. You guys compete. I'm going to give you a little bit of a softball as we get towards the end of wrapping here, because we're always looking for the very best at Team Zeigler. And I think people in automotive want to be part of a winning team, and being decisive, being certain, kind of having an opinion about what's coming, which you have all of that, is important to winning in the marketplace. What do you look for in new team members? You started the show today talking about the right people in the right roles. What do you look for in new team members, and what are you trying to add to your teams now in terms of talent in the Chicagoland?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for us, Sam, I'm a big guy about attitude, and if I have the right attitude, I can train, everybody to have the skill set. But I want to hire the people that are, that are positive, that see it, mm-hmm. That have that mindset that they want to run and be aggressive and sell and do well for our customers. Those are the people you want on your team. You want the people that got the firepower, and you want the people on your team that believe in the same things that you do. And if the business can be very simple. You take care of your customer on the sales end, you take care of your customer in service, and everything else just falls into place. So you hire the right team with the right attitude, and make sure that they fit our fundamentals and principles and mission statement, the Zeigler Auto Group, and the rest of it that works itself out, and mm-hmm. That's why we have a great team.
Lauren Klein agrees with you.
Execution of the basics.
Yeah, Lauren Klein agrees with you online. Attitude is everything. One last question that I promise we're done, but I got to ask this one. So we had the chief economist on, as I mentioned, with Cox, and he mentioned tax season this year is going to be a double benefit due to the change with the big beautiful bill, change in tax brackets. Not a lot of people have altered their deductions. They're going to get a bigger tax refund than they thought. How should GMs think about preparing for tax season right now as we go into December of 2025?
Well, you got a couple things. The tax piece is a portion that could provide a lift, obviously, in the spring, depending on what those refunds look like. I believe the data shows that the average consumer will receive somewhere around $750 additional over and above last year towards their tax refund. The other part of it's going to be really important as we go forward is what happens with interest rates on the long end of the interest rate curve. And the Fed likely will cut next week when they have the meeting. The one thing we did get today was the ADP employment report for November, and we did have a loss of 32,000 jobs, and that was in the small business sector. So, or the bulk of it, I should say, was. So that probably solidifies a rate cut next week. And then if you look forward at the Fed fund futures and you say where interest rates going to be in a year, it's likely we see Fed funds probably 100 basis points lower from here going into December of 26 is kind of where the market is paced for right now. So the big thing is there's rate cuts coming. The one thing that concerns me is I did look at, some of the delinquency data, and then you start looking at, some of the student loan data that delinquencies are rising. So what is that credit profile? I think this is really important. What does the credit profile of the customer look like over the next 6 to 12 months? Mm-hmm. How is their credit score affected because of these items? And even if interest rates come down, how does that change affordability? Because if rates come down on the Fed fund side, but credit profiles deteriorate, it may be a net zero. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what's your prediction? How do you connect those dots, Will?
So I think for being in the spring, I think you need to be nimble. You need to be tactful on your inventory and your processes. Am I out and I'm going to say I'm going to go guns a-blazing on used cars? Probably that's not the camp for me. I'm going to be a little bit more tactful on what I'm buying and how I'm buying. And I'm going to watch how interest rates move, and I'm going to watch the credit markets and see what that looks like. Because if there is a deterioration, regardless of the tax refunds, just because your customer is getting the refund doesn't mean they'll have the credit profile to support purchasing an auto anyways, with debt up and delinquencies on the rise. So I kind of keep an eye on that, and I try to put a macro picture behind it. But the good side is, just to follow up, is gas prices are at 4 or 5 year lows right now at $3.11. We haven't had that since May of 21. So there are some definite tailwinds to the economy as we go forward into 26.
Will O'Hara, VP, Chicagoland Zeigler Auto Group. Thanks for being on the show and sharing your perspectives. And it's great to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks, appreciate being on.
Thanks. I don't know. I'm getting excited about next year. You put all these little pieces together, you can take the negative approach, you can take the positive approach, but it just feels like, although there are some headwinds, to Will's point, there's a lot of good things that are culminating. And I do think the difference between winning towards the end of this year and first part of next is all about discipline as an operator. It's being in full control of your news
always
inventory, your news. It's all the same stuff, right, Yuli?
And how do you communicate that, right? Because I kept wanting to say, well, come January 1st, there's going to be a lot of, but we're still in December and we still got to make a month out of this month and make it a great month. So it's like,
and a big month, especially if you were impacted by the weather the last week or so of November.
So
all right.
January will be January. Let's crush December.
Yep. All right. Let's dive right into it. Roy Davila, Variable Operations Director at the Steele Auto Group. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys. Thanks for having me.
Roy, welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Man, it's been awesome just to sit back and listen to the conversations that have been happening. A lot of interesting stuff. I'm excited to jump into it with you guys.
We're getting a little long-winded here late in the show, but we got to ask you, Roy, first. Thanks for coming on. We got to ask our signature question. How's biz? And while you let us know about business, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Man, business is good. It's I love this market. I'm born and raised. I'm a Texan by heart. I spent the last year and a half in the East Coast in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia. So to take some takeaways and stuff I learned, I don't have to deal with all the snow out here. But
no snow.
I stepped on as Variable Operations Director here at Steele Auto. We've got 8 stores in Texas. I've been with the group for a couple of months now. I made the transition back here. I've got about 17 years in automotive retail. But a good near and dear friend of mine, Patrick Brown, jumped on as vice president of U.S. operations for us, and he presented me with this opportunity. And before jumping on, we kind of looked at the landscape of the stores, 8 stores all the way across Texas. We've got a big footprint in central Texas, a lot of rural markets, a lot of I don't want to say underperforming stores, but stores that had a lot of room for improvement. And based on the conversation you guys have been having today, we're dealing with a lot of that. One of the things that kept popping up to my mind, though, was something I try to teach these guys, my leaders, my general managers and managers in the auto group. Control your controllables, man. The market's going to change. Things are happening at a rapid rate, especially right now. All you can do is control your controllables. And what does that mean for our operators? One of the biggest things that we can control is the experience that we're giving our guests, right? You talk about used cars, you talk about interest rates, you talk about, I mean, these things can become overwhelming if you just open the fire hose and let your operators drink from it. What we try to do is break down to the simplest form and say, okay, at the end of the day, our job is to help solve these customers' problems, right? And I try to do it a couple of ways. Can we give them the feeling of transparency? Can we make them feel like we're not taken advantage of? We're very upfront. We're very open. We give them honest, and we deal with integrity. We give them real numbers, real values. And then secondly, can I make it easy? Right? Can I make it? Is it a convenient experience? Right? And then the last part right there is that word experience. Can I make it something that's fun? We just did one of my biggest things is sending out challenges to kind of bring that attitude up, right? To foster that culture that we want. So we sent on a challenge here recently that said, okay, we're going to do test drive karaoke with our salespeople. Whoever can send the most videos, jamming out to their favorite song with a customer on the test drive is going to win $100. We gave them actually, I'll come up with a winner on.
What's the video tech you're using for that, Roy?
Say that again.
What's the video technology you're using?
Video.
Okay, that's cool. Who won?
We'll find out Friday. How
many videos are being created as a result of that initiative? That's pretty cool.
It's you've seen a significant spike in videos because of it. Now we also have I'll be transparent. We have a Steele Advantage addendum on our vehicles.
Okay.
Just like every other dealership that does so, you find a little bit of resistance at first. So my fix for that was before we did this test drive karaoke video challenge, we did a Steele addendum challenge. I want a video of you presenting the addendum, and as a corporate office, we voted on the winner. One of our guys at our Hyundai store at our Kyle store in our Hyundai store in Kyle won that challenge because of the way he presented. So we're trying to.
I love the idea of competing on that. And by the way, at Zeigler Auto Group, we love to compete that way on that sort of thing. So you need to give me the rules for it. Maybe we do like a Steele Auto Group versus Zeigler Auto Group. We can get Will and his team. We'll all compete on that. I think that'd be as fun as
I like it.
Yeah. Roy, you got to send us that video too. When you do get the winner, you should email us that video. Maybe we can throw it up on the show.
Definitely.
I got a question. Obviously, we're talking a lot high level. We're drilling to as much detail as we can. But from your point, what are your non-negotiable metrics you expect your managers to inspect daily, and not just, reporting to you for reporting's sake?
No. So everything, the word of the year has been intentional, right? Everything we do since the moment we start our day to the moment we end has to be intentional. I manage my day in quarters. And one of the things that we make our managers do is get super involved in the activities and the KPIs and the attitudes and everything that we're asking for from our salespeople. I think it's a clarity thing. You don't know this job is very easy for us to get lost in the day-to-day. It's very easy for us, especially where time management skills aren't there. So from a management standpoint, I ask them to break the days down into quarters, and 4 times a day we're going in. It's very quick. We're doing a quick check-in to see where are we at on our KPIs, calls, text, emails, social media posts, videos, appointments. And then we're asking our managers to match those activities. One of the metrics that we go off of, and I'd love to take credit for it, but I got to give this one up to our VP, Patrick, 200% videos to appointments set. We want to see a 200, and from our management staff, we want to see 200% video sent based on how many appointments are set for that day.
So what's that look like from your managers then? You're asking your managers to back up the salesperson with a video for an appointment?
Yes. So
That's
salesperson
cool.
sets an
That's
appointment.
cool, yeah.
Manager has, and we want it within the first 30 minutes. You set the appointment. A manager is going to send a confirmation video, thanking them, introducing themselves. And then, of course, after the appointment, we're either going to do a thanks for your visit or a why did we miss you?
Yeah.
So what's the impact of that? What's been the proactive impact?
You're seeing the stores that are doing it like consistently, you're seeing a significant increase in not only set, but the shown ratios.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's huge.
Can I just read a few of these comments here? Eager K says, I love that. Getting customers on board and having fun with them while you're softening the customer up to the selling experience ahead. Great idea. It's always fun to compete. And then Colby Joyner, Roy's quarter times are a game changer, Yuli.
I love it. I got to ask, I guess with the car karaoke or the test drive karaoke, maybe I missed it when you said it. Who's singing? Is it the salesperson or is it the customer or is it both?
It's both. We want to engage them in a way where, well, and you have so much tech in your cars these days. To me, if it's, once again, we talk about the experience. When I demo a vehicle, I want my salesperson to have that sense of ownership with the customer experience. So let's set your car up with the CarPlay, the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto, whatever it is. Let's set it up. Let's get your music going, and then we're going to engage them with those. So even a phone call, right, to the management staff saying, "Hey, we're on a test drive."
So as we wrap up here, I have a proposal for our Daily Dealer Live audience. I don't know who will be a taker on this, but I think it would be
this
cool.
is going.
Karaoke competition between auto groups. We have every auto group that wants to compete submit their best video, and we get Yossi, the car dealership guy, back on for a special roundtable episode. And we have the top 4 salespeople from the top auto groups. We do a roundtable. Roy, would you be on for that? And you can be one of the judges. We'll bring you back. So
I love it. Let's do it.
I'll get your cell phone number after this. You and I can communicate on the rules and all that, but we'll get that out there through our newsletter deal. But I think, we talk a lot at our auto group, especially during cold weather days and days where it's tougher to communicate with customers, the importance of video. And I'll tell you, there's something intuitively tough unless we show it as GMs and we show it as VPs how to do it. There's something intuitively tough about just doing that simple thing. And yet we know in sales and in service, Roy, it makes all the difference. So you're in, right?
You have to lead with that servant's heart, right? So I travel with a media bag full of lavalier mics, stabilize. I mean, you name it, because I'm going to be in the front lines as a platform guy. I'm in there with them, shooting video, making content, looking silly. You show them, you ease them, you bring them.
You get comfortable getting uncomfortable. I mean, at the end of the day, this is car sales. Are you having the guests share it to social media? Because that's also kind of like a game changer.
That's the plan. Organic content for the stores themselves, so that we can put it out there. And then also, of course, getting the guests themselves to share it. It's the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Like, we want to influence.
It's like 2 degrees in the car business.
Yeah, there you go. We want to influence their circle of influence and show them, hey, it's fun. It doesn't have to be mundane buying a car. You can have a little bit of fun with it.
All right. Awesome. Well, I think we're in for this special episode. Anybody that wants to get in, come into the comments. Eager K says, any dealer, principal, or GM or GSM, take a lesson here. This guy's on the ball with the follow-ups and focusing on those simple things to kind of gamify this business, make it fun, and create a competitive data set. So, Roy, one question, maybe we'll extend a little bit of time here. What's one thing you're thinking about in December and even Q1 2026 that concerns you, that you're looking to solve for in business over the next few months?
So actually, this has been a top of conversation for our leadership group, and what my next agenda is trying to influence our leaders into understanding that, and it's a trick word, control, right? Yeah. Some people look at control and think it's a bad thing, or we're trying to overdo it. From the quarter times, that can be a sense of control where you're trying to control your salespeople, you're trying to micromanage them. In reality, I'm trying to just give them a recipe for success. Now, going into the end of the year and into Q1, I think control is going to have to be dialed in even more, and our control efforts are going to have to go to the selection process of a car deal, right? With all these variables and intangibles happening, we have really good qualified managers and leaders at these stores that need to influence the control part, because We don't know, to Will's a point, we don't know what the credit profiles are going to look like. We
Right.
don't know what the used car market's going to look like. We don't know what I saw the statistics you put up at the beginning, trade values, harder for us to come to an agreement on. These things are at play. So I think that slowing the process down, getting leadership involved, and influencing the selection part. Let's look at what the customer's wants and needs are. Let's look at what their problems are, and how can we as a dealer solve them?
How do you slow it down though, when so much of the data is showing the customer desire to speed it up? How do you do that and still respect the customer journey?
You have to slow down to speed up, in my opinion. I look at a visit time of 90 minutes. That's ideally what I'd love to have, right? A 90-minute visit time. That means that we leverage the tools. So when a lead comes in, we're going to leverage our digital retail tool. We're going to leverage video. We're going to leverage all these things to work as much of the process as we can. We're not afraid to give numbers. We're not afraid to work a car deal. When you look at it, even your people that start in a digital retail tool, like 75 to 80% of them still finish traditionally in the brick and mortar.
Yep.
They just want, you have to leverage, Colby's going to laugh at this one, but we call it their click and mortar and our brick and mortar. We treat them the same way, right? But we're going to start with that click and mortar experience. Now, if it's a fresh up and they walk through the door, I'm going to go a little bit old school, but I'm going to sit down, get a needs analysis, a really good assessment, and I'm going to figure out how do I, especially with stores like us, if you have multiple stores within a 30 or 45-minute radius, you have a ton of vehicles to choose from, right? You should leverage that. So you're not confined to what's on your campus. Then I need to really pay attention to this needs analysis. I need to figure out how can I solve this customer's problem. And if I slow down there, it'll speed up the rest of the process.
So is there a preferred DR tool, digital retailing tool that you're using? And then how do you message that disconnect between the digital retailing tool and a manual needs analysis tool on the showroom floor in today's world?
So my favorite digital retail tool is Buy Now. I'm a huge Car Now fan. Tim Cox and Bob Lanham and them are near and dear friends of mine. I've used their tools forever. But everything that we do from our website, every CTA, everything is pushed into conversation. So it either goes to the chat to Car Now or it goes to our Buy Now tool so that we can have a higher engaged customer, higher engaged lead. So real time, real responses is what we push there. Now, when I push my managers to be engaged in the Buy Now screens and tool itself, because I want them to lead these conversations. If somebody's in my Buy Now tool, we're going to engage with it. We're going to attempt to take that conversation into a video chat if we can, or a phone call conversation, so that we can then take the information that we got from the Buy Now deal and then influence, like I said, the selection piece if we need to.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I think that Carvana did really well, and what I'm trying to take from that, if you've ever gone through the Carvana experience, they are really good at giving you options, especially if you don't qualify for the car.
Yeah.
You might have inquired on this, you might have started your deal on it, but by the time it got to credit and decision, it gave you a really good array of options. Hey, you cannot buy this Mustang, but here are 4 vehicles you can purchase. And so where we have the limitations with the software, I want to make sure that our managers jump in and bridge that gap.
So Lauren Klein asking online, what DR tool are you using to hit that 90-minute goal? You shared with us, it's the Car Now tool. Is it a realistic goal using that tool to hit that 90-minute goal? I mean, you mentioned slowing down to speed up. Does slowing down that way allow you to meet that 90-minute metric?
It can. And you're talking about an average. You're talking about an average. Now, we're not there with Steele yet. I've done it in the past with some of my other stores. We've done actually a 90-minute high to F&I challenge, right? And the high to F&I was from the time that you walk into the store to the time I present paperwork, final documents and paperwork. The way we did that, though, is we really leaned into getting as much of it done through our DR tool as we could before the visit even started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun how you're gamifying so many elements of this. When you say the 90-minute high to F&I, you're setting a stopwatch, you're setting a clock, and you're really, you talk about slowing down, which I believe about, right, Yuli? That's intentional, right? But it's also you're speeding it up by being intentional, right? And by doing all the steps right and making sure everyone's trained well on the different steps. So
it's preparation. It's getting the team up to snuff on it, and making sure that you the thing that I like about it too is it's going to expose some of the gaps in your processes, and you can't be afraid. You have to foster a culture where people aren't afraid to fail. We want to know
that's how you get better.
Yeah.
Eager Cape pays you some props. I love this guy's positivity and his approach to every deal. I'd hire this guy without any issues. Hired. So it looks like you got, but we're not going to let that happen because we need our karaoke competition to happen.
There you go.
Maybe we can get Co-Video or Carnow or somebody to sponsor it. But that's the part I'm excited about as we walk away from today's conversation. Roy Davila, Variable Operations Director at Steele Auto Group. Heck of a lot of fun talking to you today about things you're doing to increase productivity and the bottom line at the Steele Auto Group. So thanks for being on the show.
And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll have you back for the roundtable. It's on.
Yep.
We're doing it.
Let's go. I look forward to it.
All right. So Yuli, are you in for this karaoke?
Hell yeah. Come on. I'm the cheerleader with those videos.
You and I, you got to bring the stash back. You got to bring the beard back. I can sing like the best of them, right? And I think he's on to something there, right? Like videos do connect. We've learned that not only on the variable side, but in fixed ops with techs. I mean, you could almost bring technicians into that competition. And I think we could have just a heck of a lot of fun with that type of a competition. So
I agree.
Great conversation today.
Yeah.
And interesting to start with something crazy like the 700 outage, although it is, or not outage, a data breach. But it is interesting how in everything that happens in automotive, there is opportunity, right? And
always
that is a great opportunity to just tighten up your processes, right?
He said it right. This is we should be thankful for these problems because they do create opportunities that we can solve and will make us more successful.
Yeah. All right. So anybody out there who's in for the competition, we'll have some information out there about how to join, but I'm dead serious. We're on. I think Zeigler Auto Group, 100%. We're going to take this one. We are going to take this one. So, all right, Yuli, thanks for being here today, man. What a fun show.
Thank you. Yeah, great show.
So,
yeah.
And to our loyal listening audience, thanks for joining Daily Dealer Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. So don't forget, we're live here every Monday, Wednesday, and we'll be back again this Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. So if this is your world, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never ever miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.